Shanda Sugg. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Yes. Bringing the energy today. I've had lots of coffee. Very excited to see your face. You are a human being of many talents, gifts, passions, experiences, personal and professional. So I don't want to take too much time running off your biography. You can share that. But I wanted to give our community, our partners, our colleagues a chance to have a deeper dive. And who are you? What makes you tick? What are you passionate about? And for those who don't know you, you're in this field of trauma responsive or healing centered care. And so you're a professional there, but you're also a whole person. So I just wanted to invite you to our Flocking Together series and highlight who you are. So, Shanda, welcome.
Thank you.
What's bringing you here from your heart today?
Your invitation. Anytime I get to hang out with Buffy, I'm like, let's do it. Then I show up and be like, so what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right. So the invitation is enough.
Love it.
And then you're like, oh, we're going to talk. And I'm like, well, you know what I can do? I can talk. That
for days.
For days.
Well, let's do it. Who are you? And that's a big, deep question. So take it in whatever lane you want to go in.
Oh, such a deep question. I'm like, girl, I don't know. So I am an ever-evolving human. And I'm in a season of transition. And I don't necessarily know what I'm transitioning to, which in the past has brought up a lot of anxiety and worry and fear and, all the things. Where am I going? But in this season, it is actually full of excitement and joy and ease. And so by profession, I am a licensed therapist counselor in the state of Ohio. And so I am a therapist and I work with relationships, all relationships. We're relational people. And so I've recently transitioned from working with individuals one-on-one and working with individuals in the context of relationships. So sometimes that is relationships in rupture. So, me and my mom have conflict and having a difficult time communicating with my adolescent child. Me and my partner are having a hard time. Yep, I do that. But really, I work with best friends who both wanted to see me individually, and I'm not seeing individuals, but I said, grab your best friend and I can see you both together. And the main thing is I really want to create the avenue for people to recognize that we really do heal in relationship and in community. And we can say that, you and I talk about that a lot, but I realize people don't know how to translate that, or they do their work, but then they don't have someone who has a common language. I do a lot of inner child work and healing through that. So I talk about littles. Well, somebody comes and we're like vibing in our therapy session. They're like, oh yeah, that was my 13-year-old little, da, da, da. Then they go to their cousin talking about littles and they're like, what are you talking about? Right. So it builds community, builds a common language. And I find that helpful, but all the way talking about like business partners, bands, teammates, and like, yeah, you name it. We're in relationship all the time. So that's my clinical side. Otherwise, I do a lot of training, consulting, coaching. I teach people or help people be human with other humans. At the end of the day, that's it. Because we forget we're humans, and then we forget other people are humans, and then we try to interact, and it's like, no, let's come back to the basics. We breathe, they breathe. So yeah, that's what I do. But who I am, I'm a mother. I have 3 children. Twin girls who will be 6 in less than 2 months.
Oh
and my
gosh.
mind still is like, what? how? And
Yeah.
then my son, the girl's birthday's in April, his is in October. So by the time I wrap my mind around the fact that I'm going to have 2 6-year-olds, I look up and I'm like, in less than
Mhm.
6 months, I'm going to have a 13-year-old, which is like, get out of here.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
out of here, teenager. So I'm a mom. I'm a partner and wife. Um, which is good and ripe full of opportunity to
Mm.
remember my humanity and remember somebody else's humanity. And I'm a daughter who's
Mm.
navigating interesting, complex relational dynamics with a mom. I'm a sister navigating complex, interesting dynamics with a sister,
Mhm.
right? But I'm this human who's very relational. I'm a really great friend,
Mm.
but I'm
Mm.
also starting to recognize that I only want to engage in relationships that can give and receive,
Mhm.
um, which has impacted a lot of my relationships. So
Mhm.
yeah, I am.
You are. Love it.
That's it.
Period. Full sentence. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna pull us back a little bit because a lot of juicy things have come up. Um, of of everyone I know, personally and professionally, you are not just a full, complex human being like all of us, but you do your work. And there's that sentence. There's a lot to unpack there. So I'm going to have you pause on that. But there are parts of this work that are not intellectual, and when we keep them in our head, we all will always hit a wall, right? And the space outside of our head is that body space, right? And we hear a lot in our field, I think, this notion about embodied leadership or embodied work. And to me, there's a thread there around doing your own work, walking the walk, and the notion of embodiment. I would love to hear you talk about what does that even mean to you, this notion of being embodied, and why is that important for someone in a leadership space talking about and training on and coaching folks around issues of trauma and healing and resilience building skills.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So, what it means to me, um, in some very basic terms, is to remember that I have feet, is to and notice them throughout the
Mm.
day. It means to feel the cushion underneath me as I sit in this chair. It means to take pauses throughout the day to simply observe what's entering my 5 senses. So to
Mm.
look around in a space that I am in every day and find something that I didn't notice before. Taking a
Mm-hmm.
deep breath and not just smelling what's there, but noticing that like the hairs in my nose tingle when air comes in. That's a thing. Try it,
Mm-hmm.
y'all.
Mm-hmm.
The hairs tingle, right? Like it literally means spending time noticing how my body is engaging with the
Mm.
world, taking a moment to feel how a particular fabric feels
Mm-hmm.
on my skin. So that's embodiment in some ways. And
Mm-hmm.
I've grown to this evolution of embodiment. Embodiment used to mean for me, feel my emotions, which is a thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of embodiment. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been for a while really good to go like, I'm feeling this sensation in my gut. I wonder if that's shame. I've been able to do that for a
Mm.
while. But this idea of my tangible body, touching my tangible body, using body butters and things that make my skin feel good. I have this
Mm.
amazing skincare routine now that I've dedicated to my body, like
Mm.
my physical skin. So I think embodiment has a wide spectrum of meaning, and that I'm still, trying to dig into. To the question of why it's important, it's important to me as a leader in a
Mm.
field, as a parent,
Mm.
because how I am engaging with others and the environment around me, it's not a head thing, it's a body thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I was in my head, I was just making up stories.
Mm.
That's what, and I will say, I think I have a pretty high accuracy rate, with the stories I make up based on when I go to check in, mostly based on me being like, yeah, I'm just right. I'm just right. I don't know. Yeah, sure, that seems right. But when I genuinely came into my body, learned how to come into my body gradually, sit in my body, and then notice how my body is engaging with others, it changed the game. I like to offer an example. This spans a lot of topics, but a couple of weeks ago, my daughter was invited to a birthday party. So one, having twins, when I get the invitation from class, I got to do that thing where I'm texting the number saying, hey, she's a twin, can her twin come? And so far, they've been cool with it. So it was at a trampoline park, which is essentially a big building with a whole bunch of trampolines and other fun things for kids to do. So I take my girls to this party. I walk in, and there are about 5 birthday parties going on. Just for context, 3 little rooms and then 2 bigger spaces outside, bunch of kids, bunch of parents with their kids. We go, party's already started for her, so they tell us where the room is. We drop off shoes, the girls get ready to go, and as we are looking for the birthday girl, I am the only person in this building wearing a mask. The only human being in this building wearing a mask. And this is not about masks. I don't even care what you think about masks. This is to illustrate embodiment. Because I've been more embodied as a practice, as a way of being, I begin to notice the impact on my body of being the only, of being other. I can feel the cortisol. I can feel my heart rate increase. It's not through like pounding out of my chest. I can start to feel muscles tighten. I notice my breath is a little more shallow, and it's not because I'm wearing the mask. So I'm walking around. We're looking for the little girl whose party it is. I don't know her. I've never seen her. I don't know her mama, right? I don't know her dad. So I'm relying on my girl, and I notice the self-consciousness. I notice my attention narrowly focused on my perception of what other people might be thinking of me because I am masked. So we go through, we find the little girl, and they hug, they go off to play. Now I need to find a place to settle, to sit while they play for like the next hour. So I'm walking, and I am just like, my autonomic sense of bypass this comes up. What are we going to do to make ourselves feel more comfortable? Well, where the first thing my body and brain give me is, well, let's try to jump out of this uncomfortable feeling by making up stories about all the people not wearing masks.
Oh, sure.
Right? Let's be superior. And I go, no, we're not going to do that. Thank you for the offer. We're going to sit with this. It's okay. Now, I did what I always do before I even realized I was doing it. I flocked. I texted my husband and I said, I am the only human in this building with a mask on. And he texts back, that's crazy. And I told him, I said, it's almost like walking outside in the rain with an umbrella, but you're surrounded by a bunch of people who don't have umbrellas, who have umbrellas, but don't have them up. And at some point it makes you think, is it really raining? Like you want to take it away, put your hand down and be like, is it raining? So there were literal parts of me that were like, maybe I shouldn't have this mask on. Like, is the pandemic over? Like, my brain has to make sense of what's happening around me. So it's offering me options. Well, maybe it's not that bad. And so interestingly, my husband sent me a text and he said, are there any other Black people there? Then it hit me. That's the first thing I look for when I walk into a building. Particularly, I live in a mostly white suburb, right? I go somewhere and I'm like, with my people, I'm scanning. I was so overwhelmed by being the only person in a mask. I didn't even think to search for. So that's a thing. Something that is usually important to me for survival. I want to not be the only one, was less important in this other space. And I'm just sitting with the impact of that. Okay. Eventually I find a place to sit, but then my girls call me over, mommy, come here. So as I'm getting ready to come to them, there's a woman in front of me who is not facing me, but she's blocking me from going around, not intentionally. It's clear she's looking for her child.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, excuse me. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. And she turned around and looked at me and she had on a mask. And I could instantly feel my shoulders come down a little bit. My chest opened a little bit. I breathed a little deeper. And I'm like, it's okay. But it was just this moment of like, I'm not the only anymore. Okay. Interestingly, this woman and I found multiple instances to look at each other or talk to each other or connect throughout that. Don't know this woman. And really, mask and being woman identifying or woman appearing were the only things we had in common. She's short, I was kind of tall. I'm Black, she was white appearing. Like she had this kind of hair, I had those differences didn't matter anymore because it's like, ooh. And I noticed that my body felt different. Embodiment. It's data. It's a way of being. It is a lifestyle. If I can do that in my life, then when I'm sitting in therapy with someone, I don't have to rely. I don't rely on people's words. I tell them that you're not lying, but your brain is really good at making up stories. Really good. So I'm listening to you, but I'm watching your body. So when someone comes in and I say, how are you doing? And they are tensed up and tight and they're like, oh, I'm good. And I'm like, okay, so your words are telling me you're good, but you're like, I told you, I'm always going to listen to your body first. You don't look like what your mouth says. But if I'm up in my head and I'm not connecting body to body, heart to heart, right brain to right brain, I'm gonna miss all of that. I'm gonna take their words, I'm fine, and I'm gonna keep moving on. So as leaders, when we are embodied, we allow ourselves to be open to the language and to the messages of other people's bodies. If we're not embodied, we miss the messages all day. So I think that's why it's important.
Okay, I wish I had someone to do show notes because there were so many things that popped out. I feel like we could dive. We don't have that, so just rewatch, y'all. Okay, there's 1,000 things you said. I want to go a little bit deeper. I'm gonna see if I can. I've got some post-its of some threads. What I'm hearing, if we go 30,000 feet up, and what I mean by embodiment, and we're not sitting here saying we've got the definition. This is a conversation we're unpacking, right? But there are three things that stood out. One, it's about noticing, right? What's happening inside, not judging that, not adding story to that. You often say our brains will go attach to the most convenient narrative, meaning we have an experience and we go to our stories first. So the invitation is to start to notice what's showing up. And that is the work. There's nothing to do after that right now. There's a noticing and there's capacity for curiosity, right? Where you're able to say, I wonder what else is true. I wonder what message is here, right? That curiosity, again, not necessarily meant to be answered. These are curious questions. All of this takes practice. So I want to bring us way back to the why. Why is it so important for us as leaders or any of us in this healing profession to be embodied? I'm going to answer a little bit, then I want you to take it from there. It's because healing happens right brain to right brain, just like what you said, right? Our capacity to connect with one another, that is the healing component. And it's not intellectual, it's empathy, it's relationship. I think this is my right. I'm bad with right and left. Noticing, connecting to curiosity, and engaging in practices takes a lot of work. And most of us, if we've had a traumatic or stressful or prolonged experience of rupture, we are cut off from our body and it doesn't feel safe to go into our body, right? So there's two questions I'm going to float and you can catch wherever you want. One, how do you safely invite someone into that space, invite someone into embodiment? If we know it's so important, how do we walk with people on that journey? But two, when we center relationship in that relational space, if that's the heart of our work, and we know that our biological imperative is to connect and have safety and belonging in relationship, but our life experiences have told us the relationships aren't safe, right? If the drive is for connection, but the survival is about protection, how do we start to shift through or go over that hump? Right? It's a myth that some of us can be embodied and some of us can't. We're all humans. We all have that invitation, but you make it sound easy. I'm pretty sure it's hard as hell. So How do we navigate the both of that? We need connection, but we're wired for protection. What does that bring up for you?
Well, it brings up titration. It brings up practice. It brings up, this isn't new. Anyone who can, who has the capacity and capability to use the restroom, to defecate and urinate in a toilet, has gone through this, because I know everyone doesn't have that capability and capacity. But those of us who do, we've been through this. There was a point in time where we did not do that. And there came a socially pressured moment by caregivers to go, it's time for you to stop. Whether that was, I'm tired of buying diapers, or you're a certain age. That's a whole different topic of why and when we do that, when we do it. But there became this process of saying, you now need to do a certain thing. You need to be embodied so that you can do a thing.
Let me pause real quick, because this is the becoming clear for me. What you mean by you need to be embodied? As a little toddler, I'm defecating and urinating in my diaper in my bed, and eventually the direction from the caregiver invitation is, notice when you have to go to the bathroom. Okay, so that,
yes, you have to be embodied in order to go to the bathroom and the potty. Now, most people don't realize this is what they're asking people to do, and so we overly simplify the potty training process. Just go to the potty. But no, that's not what it is. First, the child has to go, my body does a whole bunch of things. I have to learn how to separate this one thing from it. It's why sometimes a toddler will say, I'm hungry, but they just ate. They feel something. They have access to some words. They're communicating, my body's doing something. And we on the outside are going, okay, you could be hungry, but you did just eat. So I wonder if it's something else. We do this with infants. That baby cries. We don't know what the hell's wrong with that child. So we go through the process. Pick it up. Did it stop? No. Rock it. It's still going. Feed it. It's still going. Change the diet. Oh, and then we figure out the thing. And then 2 hours later, we go back through the process because the baby feels something. It communicates something. We don't know exactly what it is. So with the potty training process, we are telling and teaching a child how to recognize a sensation and separate that sensation from all the other sensations they feel. It's why a child can confuse. I remember my daughter, one in particular, I have to pee. Okay, but then you put her on the toilet and she's pooping. Or she's like, I gotta poop. You put her on the toilet and she pees. And then you don't want to let her up because you said you gotta poop, but she's like, I'm done. She just knew both of these things kind of feel like I got to go there. Well, once they start to feel that, you will have throughout the process where they will pee in their diaper and then go, I peed. And you're like, oh, you're supposed to pee there. Don't that process. Now they know what it is. They're recognizing, oh, this thing, I did that.
The noticing.
I noticed it. And now I'm calling that thing a thing. And then we eventually go to the point where they'll recognize it, but they recognize it as it's happening, part of the process. Then they build capacity to recognize it a little bit earlier, but not in enough time to make it to the toilet. Then they build the capacity to go, I need to tell you I got to go to the bathroom and it's enough time to get there. Then we grow older and we go, I got to pee. But I'm gonna finish this last email and I'm gonna have this conversation. And I'm gonna do all this stuff. And right? So we condition into a space of embodiment often, and then we decondition out of it for the sake of productivity, for the sake of some relationships, for the sake of all these other things. So when people feel overwhelmed by embodiment, I'm saying it's a process, but so was potty training. So was so much of this other things. My son confused hunger and boredom for a very long time and still does. When he comes upstairs and opens the refrigerator door and stands there, I go, you bored, kid? And it's like, oh, it reminds him something's happening in there. I feel it in I'm reaching for something. So it's not easy, but it's also not new. It's also not as complex as we sometimes make it. Sometimes little incremental steps in relationship. If you're a physically affectionate person, let's say you hold hands with someone, whoever it is, pause while you're holding hands and just say, can you feel the warmth of my hand? I
Mm.
feel the warmth of your hand. That
Mhm.
feels smooth. Oh, right. It is just taking moments to
Mhm.
check in with whatever shows up in the body. And once you build it,
Mhm.
we can retain it, but it's more possible than I think we think.
And what I'm hearing from you is these things take practice. They're bite sized. They're incremental, right? Titration is a word we learned from somatic experiencing, where you go in and then you come back right into your space of safety. Um, I want to really ground into what's the risk of not being embodied. You already gave us a couple examples. If you don't know what's going on in your body, if you don't know what sensations are, you could be attaching to a narrative and then reacting based on that, right? So the simple through line is, if you're not embodied, you do not have the capacity for presence. And without presence, we can't do any healing work, right? So if you're not embodied, if you're not practicing that noticing, that curiosity, what's the harm of that, specifically within the work that we do in this world?
Yeah, I wish I knew the name of the condition, but there is a medical, physical condition by which people don't feel or experience pain, at
Mm,
least to
mm,
the rate and degree that other people do. And pain is essentially, in this context, like our skin and nerves registering something being invasive or harmful.
mm,
Well,
mhm,
those people have such a high risk lifestyle because they can be cutting themselves, burning themselves, and
mm,
engaging in activities that are harmful to
mm,
them. But because they can't feel it, they continue to persist. Right. And
mhm,
so part of the necessity of embodiment in relationships is, if you've blocked off the capacity to feel the harm, the hurt, the shame, the joy, the all of that in the relationship, then we can be engaging in relational things that are harmful to us, harmful to others, and we don't even know it. And
mhm,
that requires us to not try to bypass the things that don't feel good, but
mm,
take the things that don't feel good as data about that relationship. So then
mhm,
we can slow the process down enough to feel empowered to decide what kinds of relationships we want to be in, how we
mhm,
want to engage in those relationships. And it allows invitation. We can invite people in a different way once we start to understand what we need and what we want relationally. But ultimately,
mhm,
to that point, without this embodiment, we're relying on narrative alone. And our
mhm,
narratives are, more often than people want to believe, inaccurate.
mm, mm,
And so
mm,
then we're just responding to people based on inaccuracies, rupturing all over the place for what makes
mhm,
us feel safe in the moment. But it's a false sense of security and safety because it's not even based on what's real that's happening. And then we look
mhm,
around and we feel isolated, we feel lonely, we feel estranged, and all these things, when sometimes that was just a result of us going based on narrative alone.
mhm. Yeah, it's it all of this is simple but not easy. And we're not actually saying embodiment is rightly accessible for everyone. Again, if you experience early complex childhood trauma, if you experience stress and marginalization, often where cortisol and adrenaline are all pumped through your body as a survival strategy, you're not going to be connected back here. So there's no shame and blame and not coming back. And there's an invitation that that's really where the healing is. You have
Mhm.
a great quote. You got to feel it to heal it. Then you can let it go. I want to round us out here for our time for you to share. If people want to feel with you and heal with you, they can let some shit go. Where do they find you? How do you engage people? And maybe if you want to just name, you do a lot. What do you want to be doing more of
Yeah.
more often around this context?
Yeah. So, I love working with relationships, particularly multi-generational families. If you're in Ohio and you want to work in relationship and family, holler at me. We can do that. If you're an individual or you're outside of Ohio and you like, I need some more of that, I am offering a series of 6-week courses that
Mhm.
talk a lot about all of this, building
Mm,
5 core practices for embodiment, healthy living, and all that stuff. And
mm,
so I'll give you my website. All this stuff is there, but the course is a really good place to
mhm,
begin to move into this healing space. And then I offer some retention spaces after that. If you're just like, I'm not trying to make a commitment, but I hear this all the time, I could listen to you talk all day. If you want to listen to me talk all day, I have a podcast, the Labors of Love podcast. So hop over there. We just celebrated 2 years, going strong. Excited about the work that's there. And I'm on all the social media, even TikTok. I'm getting a huge reception in the TikTok world every week. Just a quick short video, a food for thought. And so I'm all over the place, but www.thelaborsoflove.com has access to all of that stuff, including a way to contact me. I'd love to hear from you. Because we heal in community, we heal through connection, and I'm gifted to help people heal. So
yes, you freaking are. Thank you, Shanda, for talking today. Obviously we could talk for eons, but this is wonderful. A lot of food for thought, and we will see you out in the Soulbird universe, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Buffy.
Bye.